Hey you guys, so in my last newsletter we talked about how the direction the foot points is most often going to indicate something about the rotation of the head of the femur in the hip socket. And so I mentioned briefly, touched on briefly, the fact that that is also going to affect the hip. And so that's what we're going to see today, because it's much easier to see than it is really to describe. So here's our model Alex, and we'll begin. So starting in three-legged dog, the leg lifts, and we're, in theory looking for a neutral leg. If you look back and your foot is pointing to the side, for example, you can see how that then ricochets up and has elevated the hip. So we've actually now moved the hip out of a neutral pelvis. So if that were to happen the other way, the foot is turning in. And down dog's a nice one because you can really look back easily and actually see what the foot is doing, and then hopefully start to learn about the hip. And so here we see that the hip is dropped. It's not maybe as dramatic as the hip lift, but this is going to be kind of the main thing that you see your students, for example, or you will perhaps do in three-legged dog. So go ahead and release the leg and just go ahead and lift the leg up one more time. So we'll just see that again. So here we have a neutral leg, pretty level pelvis, long side body. If the leg were to lift with perhaps a little less awareness, the toes turn out to the side, and as a result, now the pelvis is starting to open to the side. Okay, so we'll look at that in Warrior 3, Virabhadrasana 3. So he's going to use blocks, and this is a great way that you can, worry about my head getting cut off in the video. This is a great way that you can explore it as well, because it allows you to look back at the foot and really play with that action. So go ahead and come into Warrior 3. So really this is identical really to your three-legged dog. So what we're really hoping for is going to be a neutral leg. Okay, toes pointing down if that's neutral for your anatomy. And then we can see this play with the foot turning to the side. And already that's ricocheted up into the hip, which actually makes this pose more like a half moon lower body than a Warrior 3. And then same thing if you were to over-rotate, so perhaps I came up to him and I corrected that, and then in the process of correcting, he kind of overdid it. You can really let that hip drop just to see. Then you have the opposite problem. So what we're looking for is a balance between the external rotation and the internal rotation, which is really going to be here neutral. And then we're going to look at it in one more position. We're going to look at it in lunge. So go ahead and come into lunge. So this also really happens often. Can you put your hands down and come a little bit wider to like hip distance with the feet? Yep. So right hip back, left hip forward. Yep. And hands on the floor since we're just working here. So just notice we've got a pretty neutral foot with the heel up. If he were to externally rotate the foot, the other way, that's internal, the heel would collapse to the side, and we've already affected up here at the hip. So now you're looking more at a triangle back leg or a Warrior 2 back leg, and then go ahead and overdo it in the other direction. And the pelvis maybe has even tilted and moved to the side. Come back to neutral really quick. You might see, we're being dramatic for the purpose of, really demonstrating what's happening, but this could be really much more subtle. Can you kind of collapse to the big toe mound and so that may be more like what you would see, and that's not having as big of an effect on the hip. But in this case, we've got the back foot in contact with the floor, so we perhaps have more feedback than we would when the back leg is up in the air like a three-legged dog or a Warrior 3. Okay, thank you. Thank you guys so much. I hope this helps. Let me know if you have any questions.